I'm 28 and I have $37,000 in debt. All right, well, let's see what's up and what's her situation.
I am 28 years old and I have $37,523.46 in debt. You're probably wondering why I'm sharing such personal information on the internet. I love watching people's debt payoff journeys here on TikTok.
Before I resume watching this video, one thing that's kind of screwed me up is doing all these debt payoff scenarios. If I see a number like 38,000, I kind of think, is that it? Is that happening to you guys as well? Where you watching this is like 38,000? That's it? Anyways, let's keep watching.
It is so inspirational. It just makes me feel not alone. So that's number one. And number two, it's a great way to keep me accountable for actually paying off this debt. I plan to pay that off by the time I turn 30, which is in 1 year and 9 months. Of that, $6,946.92 is credit cards. 6,000 of that is a personal loan, which is a really stupid decision, but that's okay. There's no shame here. $2,496.61 of that is back taxes, and $22,079.93 is school loans. If you are interested in me paying this off, definitely
You want to know something? Like, have you ever
$79 and
watched the Dave Ramsey show where someone talks about they have back taxes? The only time I've ever heard Dave Ramsey tell you to like use a line of credit or borrow money is to pay the IRS. He says it's much better for you to have that the taxes with owed to the bank rather than the government. That's what he says. I don't remember the exact reason, but that's really interesting.
93 cents is school loans. If you are interested in me paying this off, definitely follow along. I'm also going to be posting each time I get paid, like how much I pay toward my debt, what exactly I'm paying off first, all of that good stuff. For years, I just have been paying like minimums, and I finally realized like I'm not honoring my future self by the action that I'm putting in towards my financial goals. And 2024, this is the year. So to be able to be 30 years old and be debt free, I can't even imagine the weight that will be lifted from my shoulders. And I hope that with me sharing this journey, it will inspire you to go full force with your own debt payoff journey and help you feel not alone, because having debt can be one of the most at least for me, it's filled with so much shame, and I can do a whole series around shame and money and debt and all of that, and maybe I should include that in all of the things I'm going to share. But you're not alone. So many people are in debt, and it's a normal thing, but we also are in control of our spending, and all of that stuff. So I'm excited to share. I'm nervous because this actually means that I have to do it. I'm gonna do it. I want to do it, and follow me along for the journey.
Okay, so it's I think one of the big mistakes that a lot of these debt TikTokers make is they don't talk about income and non-debt expenses, right? Because if I have those three numbers, total amount of debt, what's your income, what's the expenses on top of the debt, then I can just calculate in my head pretty quickly or estimated, because I've done this like over 700 times at least, of how to pay off debt. And that's what we're going to do today, folks, with this thing that we used to call velocity banking, but now we'll just call the velocity method, and sometimes we call the debt cannonball method, um, to pay off debt. Okay. And here's another scenario that we're going to go over that, and here's what makes this channel unique. Okay, out of all the major velocity channels, this is the only one that uses a spreadsheet. Everyone else is using a whiteboard. And when I see that whiteboard, I'm just like, ugh, this is hard to read. But you notice this is high quality recording because I'm using OBS. You use a program like OBS, it's just right in front of you. And then anyone can use Microsoft Excel. You just get the free version on live.com, office.com, or whatever, right? Anyways, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. If I actually had her numbers of whatever, not only just the debt, but also the income and the, monthly expenses on top of the debt, then I can easily figure out her scenario. All right, so that's what we're going to do today. And what is the difference between the average American method of banking and the velocity method? Well, the biggest difference is that even though we assume same income, same expenses, and oh, kind of screwed up here, but let me just do this. Let me go ahead and make this a little bit neater. But the biggest difference is that we're deliberately not saving money. In fact, this whole velocity method, you want to break it down and deconstruct it. It's just a fancy way of remarketing not saving money, right? And I know people will say, "Well, it's just not saving money, right?" It's the same. Like, listen, how many people do you know out there who actually think it's a good thing to not save money? I don't know anybody, right? A lot of people freak out about this. And what we're also going to do is we're also going to focus on this thing called cash flow, this cash flow number. You see, with the checking and savings, with the average American banking style, cash flow and whatever is left over is kind of perceived to be the same thing. Whereas here, our cash flow is really the amount of debt that gets paid off every single month. Okay. And what I like to do is show how we go from here and increase this without increasing the income. Okay. And I know a lot of you are silent ninjas, right? I look at my YouTube statistics and there are a lot of watch hours, but very few comments. Very few, except for the ones who've been with me for a while, past couple of years. I see the comments from you all, but people who are especially new, they like to watch like silent ninjas, and then they don't ever comment. So if you're a silent ninja, don't be shy. Comment below, okay? So what's the next step? So the first step is creating a budget because your budget is your debt attack plan. And then the second step is using a formula called the cash flow index. Now, why did I fall in love with this formula is because random people started emailing me their budgets and they wouldn't have like two or three debts, right? Like when I used to do scenarios of two or three debts, I was like, this cash flow index thing, I don't know, it's that useful, right? But once people started sending me spreadsheets of like unsolicited 10 to 20 debts, I was just like, how do I organize this? And then that's when I started to use the cash flow index. Like, oh, 10 to 20 debts. That's amazing. And so, what does this cash flow index mean? Well, all it okay, is basically a formula to rank your debts, right? And the lower the number, you get more bang for your buck. So you see this 30-year mortgage, right? $300,000 for $1,400 monthly payment. Well, what does that mean? Well, what does this big number mean? It means I got to pay a lot for itty bitty cash flow. See, there's this big temptation out there to pay off your mortgage first because it's like tied to, let's say, human survival, right? It's tied to something very emotional, which is your home. So a lot of people will want to pay off that mortgage first, right? I'm not saying everybody, but there's a good number of people who do. But why should we, for example, pay, let's say, these two credit cards because we only have to pay $45,000 to get the equivalent of a mortgage payment in terms of cash flow rather than $300,000. So we want to get our bang for our buck, right? So then the next step is we're going to assume we have access to a line of credit. So what's a line of credit? It's basically a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. Now, a lot of times when I do demonstrations, because I want to keep this video under 20 minutes, right? I always assume that we access to a free and clear line of credit. If I don't have a free and clear line of credit, which most people don't, or if they don't have a line of credit at all, it's going to be harder because now you're making split payments, or now you're dealing with a max line of credit where it's going to be harder to pay off that debt because you got to pay off not only the credit card debt but a huge interest payment on that line of credit because it's maxed out, right? So we're just going to assume we have a free and clear line of credit. And hey, if you knew this strategy, you probably would never be here, right? You probably would not be here. But that's what we're going to do, and we're going to assume we have a 200,000. No, we don't need a $200,000 line of credit. I don't think we do. Let me just calculate how much is the credit cards in total. So 27, 37, and then we're going to go ahead and sum this up. So that's 92. We'll assume we have a $100,000 line of credit. So, pop question for you all, or is it quick question, pop quiz? I don't even know. I'm totally like not wide awake. But would the bank ever give you a free and clear line of credit if all you have is $27 left over and you have all this debt? The answer to that is no, because banks don't lend money to people who need it. And the reason why the bank doesn't lend money to people who need it is because the bank is a leech, and people who need money, there's nothing to leech off of, right? And here's another reason why the bank doesn't lend money to people who need it is because the bank considers you to be a very bad person. Okay, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying the bank considers you to be a very bad person if you need money because they know as an institution with all the gajillions of transactions that they do because they do a lot of analysis and I'm pretty sure with AI, they have even more insight to their data, that people who need money don't pay you back. People who need money don't pay you back. So why would I lend money to people who need it if they're not going to pay me back, right? That's what essentially underwriting is for, right? And so let me go ahead. And how much was that credit card debt again? I think it was 97,000, 92,000, right? 92,000. So let's just do this. So what we're going to do is transfer debt 92,000 right here. And just guess what happens when you just transfer debt 0,000. Payments go away. And now we went from $27 to $3,082.60. Whoa. Same income. We just shifted some expenses. How do we go from here to here? Change the flow of money and we make sure we don't save it, right? Really, the main difference between this column and this column, I'll tell you what it is. With this column, the first column, your checking account is seen as the final destination of your money. With this column, your line of credit is seen as the final destination of your money. So checking account is actually a secondary spot for your money, right? It's a temporary spot. You want it to go to zero, and then you do the final step, which is you put your entire paycheck into that line of credit, take your expenses out, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. Okay. All right. So now 3082.6. And then, actually, how do we? Oh, did I screw up? So to get the previous month's balance, the next month's balance, it's the previous month's balance, previous month's interest minus our cash flow, and then of course we need to pay interest on the line of credit if we're using it, and so we calculate by taking the average daily balance divided by 12, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste. Yeah, and you see how after every single month by putting our entire paycheck, taking our expenses out, right? We were basically lowering that line of credit balance while happening to still pay all of our bills, right? And so now this is why I tell you, like, oh, 38,000, what was it, $32,000 of debt? Let me just quickly check again. $37,000 of debt, that's a joke, and then I shouldn't be saying that, but how much debt do we have? 327 plus 92, so that's like almost, I think, $500,000 of debt. So, pretty sure a lot of people in their 30s with that amount of debt. And that's probably why like this channel doesn't actually reach people in their 20s. Believe it or not, the average age of a person on this channel, or actually the people who watch this channel the most are older than 45. Older than 45. Okay, so now let's go ahead and copy this. So this is 29 months, and I'm just going to do this. So this is 29 months, and that's going to be 92K. And so that's the payoff for all of our credit cards, right? And remember, I know you might be thinking, why? Well, why did it take more than a year? Because we literally start off with $27 in the beginning, right? Like, okay, yeah, if you had $1,000 left over and you're trying to like pay off your bills, then yeah, that maybe you might say that. But if we literally start off with $27, it's like, oh, okay, well, I think anything less than 3 years or at the 3 year mark is acceptable, right? And then we have two more loans, which is the auto loan and the mortgage. So we have this loan calculator right here where I just got 29.29. And then we just follow the cash flow index again. See, these are the balances. This is cash flow index. We don't want to start paying off that mortgage because we got to pay a lot of money for that 80 amount of cash flow where we pay 14 grand, we get $485, right? And here's the temptation that a lot of you might face is that I don't know if I want to pay this off first because look at this high interest rate. It's 1% higher. Okay, it's 1% higher. So why would we pay this one off first? Is because we're getting more cash flow for paying it off first. So I'm going to go ahead and move this 14 grand, whatever's in that auto loan, into the line of credit, and I'm going to go ahead and do this. So this is going to be plus 14454.4. Okay, and then now we get this $485 of cash flow here. And then now we have $3,567.75. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. And so now, wait, hold on. Did I screw up? I think I did. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, man, I think, all right. So it's 34 months. My bad. I screwed up. Okay, well, at less than 3 years, anything is fine. So I put the wrong cash flow in. Sorry. All right, so now 34. Oh, is it 34 months? Hold on. Let me go back here. So 34 months. All right. So it's not 25 months. I was like, that's a little bit quicker than I expected. And it turns out I did the math wrong. But this is why I like to use Excel because I can easily identify the errors of my math rather than with a blackboard or a whiteboard, right? All right, so let me just do this one more time. So this is 34, 34, right? And then this would be 12 grand. So now, hopefully I didn't make any mistakes. Yeah. Okay, same cash flow throughout. So now this is what I'm going to do is hold on. Okay. So now what we're going to do is add that 12198.05 loan into the line of credit. So, and even if we don't increase our cash flow, it hold on. How long does it take to pay off? 38 months. Okay. And so now, what's our cash flow now? It's 3,500 because that auto payment was about 400 bucks. All right. So now I'm going to do this. 3567.75. Okay, and let's see. Oh, look at that. We paid that off 1 month earlier. Nice. 37 months. Okay. So now, so that's 37 months equals 92 plus 27, 119K. Okay. And then now we have our mortgage at 37 months. What's the balance of our mortgage? It's 283. So at this point, if you've gotten to this part of the journey where the only thing left you have of I'm sorry of debt, the only debt you have is the mortgage. Congratulations, you're farther off than most people. So you have two ways to pay this off, which is you put this in this cash flow as an extra payment, or you can use a line of credit. Right? You can use a line of credit to pay it off. Okay, and so now, why might I want to use a line of credit rather than doing the extra payment? And I'm going to tell you something. When you make the difference between a loan and a line of credit, right? A loan is a one-way street. And anytime you overpay a loan, that money feels like it's gone. Now, I'm not saying it's gone, it feels like it's gone. Okay? Whereas if you use a line of credit, it's almost like a bridge to make it easy to pay it off. And so I've came up with this little, actually it was Google Gemini, came up with this little chart of the difference between extra payments and using a line of credit, which we call chunking, right? So here's what it is, okay? Basically, you take a piece of the loan and move it into line of credit. And the reason why that even though extra payments is the default, nobody does it is because you're basically using brain capacity and resources to overpay the debt. Because the question you have to ask yourself is how much should I pay extra today? And that's a very hard question for people. Whereas if you're doing the HELOC method, we used to call velocity banking, but we can't anymore thanks to the state of Illinois, is that you don't have to really think because your goal is to make sure your checking account goes to zero, right? And so if you kind of think about this, the adherence to doing extra payment is incredibly low because it feels like when you overpay, and I'm not saying it actually is gone, but it feels like when you overpay, your money's gone. Okay, and that's why I put an energy level row here where it's like it requires constant willpower. But what you're doing here is that you're making small gains in momentum. And so, what do I mean by that? So, let's say like you move $7,000 of this mortgage into the line of credit, right? So, this would just be plus 7000. Okay, and look at that. That 7,000 gets wiped out in about 2 months. And so when you see that 7,000 get wiped up every 2 months, it's like, whoa, like, why am I paying off the principal so quickly? It's you're technically making an extra payment, but using the line of credit as a bridge to help you make that extra payment, right? So that's kind of the idea here if you want to use it. Now, I'm not going to go and say, "Oh, this is always better than the extra payment." What I'm saying is that extra payments will not be done because you're going to experience decision fatigue, or else you would have done it and everyone would have had their mortgage paid off by now, right? Everyone would have done it. And you want to know something? I paid off my mortgage in 2 years and 9 months, so hopefully I know what I'm talking about. Or maybe I'm just saying that so that I'm capturing the viewer's attention, and then kind of like the lady in the red dress in the Matrix. Maybe like you're like what, and you got distracted. I don't know. All right, so now I'm just gonna show you this calculator of using the chunking method. So give me one moment. All right, so you see the numbers here, right? So 283,000 pays off in 5.3 years, and then this is the monthly income and expenses, and then the amount that we're chunking. So the most important thing that you can get from this is not this whole chunking thing. It's that you need to pay off the order or the debt in the correct order. We don't attack the mortgage until we've paid off all the other debts, because the mortgage is considered what we call to be an efficient debt. Efficient, not inefficient, right? It's an efficient debt. But here's the thing about efficient debts, right? Efficient debts cost you a lot of money in the long run, meaning that you're paying little payment amount over the balance. So if I go and to the 30th year, you'll notice I paid over $200,000 of interest. Okay, like uh, right on a 4% loan. So not only that, you got to pay 300 plus 200. All right, so now that's 283 thousand. And so let me just kind of do this here. All right, so 5.3 years. So let me just kind of show this right here. So this is gonna be zero now, and then 37 divided by 12 plus 5.3. That's going to be 8.38 years, and then we're completely debt free. And how much debt was that? That was 119 plus 300. So that's 419k. Is that 419k? Okay. All right. So now I thought it was 500,000, but it's about 419. But think about this: if we bought a home in our 20s, and we're freaking out $37,000 of debt. Now again, I don't know how much income she makes, but it's like 300 or 419,000 after 8 years. And we were maxed out in the beginning. Remember that? We were definitely maxed out in the beginning. And then, so now, 8.38 years, we are debt free. Okay. With $419,000 of debt. And if we did this for like 3 debt cycles, we'll say like, we have a house that takes like 4 years to pay off, right? So right here, 5.3 years, and then next house might take 4 years. We could have like a free and clear real estate portfolio in about like, I don't know, 10 years, and then we could sail off the races and be retired, right? Okay, well, that's it for today, folks. Korean Lanta Mentorship. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.